What's up, guys? How's it going? It's always me, Francesco. Welcome, of course, to the new episode of the Wine Thursday. And okay, we will wait for a little bit more people to start today's discussion. So, of course, as I told you last time, of course, we are going to continue the discussion, one discussion about Chianti Classico versus Chianti wine, of course, and the generic Chianti, the standard Chianti, whatever you want to call it. So all of the other areas that, of course, belong to Toscana, that has, of course, the appellation Chianti, which, as I told you last time, it's different compared to Chianti Classico, which is the region where we are. Of course, you can see the banner on my that you can see on my back. You have the Chianti Classico area, which, as I told you last time, it's a small area that it's in between Firenze and Siena. So Florence and Siena. And of course, last time we discussed about all of the different subzones of the Chianti Classico area. This time we will see in the specific all of the sottozone, all of the subzones of the Chianti, of the other Chianti, areas, all of the different areas of the Chianti that we can find, of course, in Tuscany that has as a name Chianti. So we will discuss about each different subzone. So we'll, of course, as I told you last time, I will try, of course, to summarize a little bit all of the different characteristics, all of the different rules, and so on. Of course, it's not that easy as a thing because, of course, you know, we have so many things to cover. And I mean, as I told you, every wine from each winery, it's so different, and so sometimes we are not able to summarize wine like this. I mean, it's not that easy, but I will try, of course, to explain you the most important thing about this kind of wine. So before, of course, we start with today's discussion, I want to tell you that, as always, I'm so happy to of course do this kind of discussion. I also discover many new things when I prepare the topic for the talk, because, of course, sometimes even the people of the wine, which is a word that I don't really like, but of course even people that work in the wine field, in the wine industry, sometimes we don't know deeply certain kind of arguments, like the difference between Chianti and Chianti Classico. So even for me, I mean, I knew, of course, the difference, of course, in general, but there was certain kind of very specific things that I didn't know, at least in the beginning. And so when I was preparing myself for this talk, I tried, of course, to go a little bit more deeper into this argument. So let's start with this. I hope, of course, everybody's doing great. Everybody's doing fine. Chani, thank you so much. Of course, no worries. Of course, I'm glad. Of course, you are back, and I hope, of course, you're doing great. You're doing well. And of course, if you want to ask, this is for everybody. If you want to make comments, if you want to ask questions, of course, feel free just to write down a comment, and I will be happy to reply. Thank you, Nick, so much to join me for this wine discussion. Again, as I told you guys, we are covering the same topic of the other day. We are continuing to talk about the same topic of the other day. Last time we spoke about Chianti Classico versus Chianti, and we, of course, analyzed deeply each different subzone of Chianti Classico. This time we are going to talk about each different Chianti and the rules. Of course, for now, I will just, of course, tell you the general rules, again, just to as a quick reminder. So, of course, when we talk about Chianti Classico and versus Chianti wine, of course, we are anyway talking about red wine. Wines that we can say are they have, of course, a good acidity, good fruitiness, and of course they can be also very versatile in the most part of the case. But of course, we have very different kind of I don't know. I think the connection is not okay. No, sorry. The StreamYard was telling me that we have a little problem with the connection. I hope, of course, everybody is able to see me perfectly. Ciao, Kata. Okay, I'm very glad that you are, of course, joining us. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's continue with the discussion. Of course, please let me know, everybody, if you are not able to hear or see in the proper way. I will try, of course, to fix the problems. So let's start. Of course, we are talking again, as I told you, about wines that are fruity, with a good that has a good fruitiness, with a good acidity. But of course, they are totally different because they belong to different areas of Toscana. Another aspect that it's quite different, and believe me, it's very important to cover this topic here. It's the percentage of Sangiovese that the Chianti wine need to use at minimum. Chianti, the generic Chianti wines, they are allowed to use at minimum 75% of Sangiovese. In Chianti Classico area, we are allowed to use at minimum 80% of Sangiovese. If we go lower, if you go under the 80% of Sangiovese, it's illegal to use the term Chianti Classico, to call that kind of wine Chianti Classico. So that's so important. So as I told you, it's minimum 80%. Then of course we can add other kind of red grapes variety, but we're not allowed to use, for example, white variety. In the generic Chianti, they are allowed to use white grapes variety, except for Chianti Colli Senesi. But in all of the other areas, they are allowed to use white grapes variety. Again, as I told you, for Chianti is 70-75% minimum of Sangiovese, plus whatever they prefer. Of course, it can be 100% Sangiovese if they want, but most of the time they blend with other kind of varieties, with other kind of grapes, and also they are allowed to use a little bit of a little percentage of grapes, white grapes variety. So that's so important to keep on your mind. In Chianti Classico, it's illegal to use, of course, white grapes variety. So we're not allowed to do that. Again, I want to underline this. It's always 100% grapes, red grapes variety. Okay, another thing I want to tell you, of course, we have always like a different minimum level of alcoholic percentage. For example, for Chianti wine is around 11.5. For Chianti Classico, it's a bit higher. It's a little bit higher. It's around 12. So that's the minimum percentage of the alcohol that it is of course permitted by the consortium of Chianti Classico. Also, the Chianti Classico area, the Chianti Classico appellation give to us certain kind of very strict rules. The other Chianti, we say that they have less rigid kind of rules, less strict rules. So they, I don't want to say that they are free to do whatever they prefer, but in general, they are more free. For example, also in terms of like aging, we tend to age for a longer time before we release the wine on the market. And that's so important to underline because, of course, certain kind of wines needs more time to achieve a phenomenal quality, and so the aging time it's so important. And of course, Chianti Classico wine are those kind of wine that you want to wait for the best moment to drink them, of course, because they can be amazing, really. Usually for Chianti wine, we tend to have simpler wine. I don't want to say that they are, generally speaking, lower quality. I don't want to say that, but they are usually simpler. So that it's all about complexity. Chianti Classico wine, they are always more complex, and of course, better longevity, of course. Okay, I want to say also another thing that it's so important to underline, and it is that the Gran Selezione, for example, it's something that belongs only to Chianti Classico. So in the Piramide Qualitativa of Chianti Classico, we have, of course, the Chianti Classico standard, so Chianti Classico Dannata, we have the Chianti Classico Riserva, and then, of course, the Chianti Classico Gran Selezione. Chianti Classico Dannata, which is the youngest one, it can be, of course, released on the market after 1 year, 18 months of aging. The Chianti Classico Riserve can be released on the market after 24 months of aging, minimum, of course, and the Gran Selezione after 36, 42. Chianti doesn't have Gran Selezione. They only have Annata and Riserva. And they are always aging those kind of typology, this kind of wine, only for around 1 year. Some when it comes, of course, about the Riserva, 1.5 years. So it's always like very short amount of time. So, for example, in some kind of cases, for example, if we are talking about of the Chianti Colli Aretini, they are allowed to, of course, release on the market the wine the 1st of March of the year after of the vintage of the harvest. So very short amount of time for the aging, and that's so important because, of course, the wine, the Chianti wine, the generic Chianti wine, are not wine that can survive for a longer time. They are not able to age like the Chianti Classico wine. So again, the complexity of Chianti Classico wine will be higher. Again, I'm not talking about if it's good or if it's bad. I'm just saying that the complexity is totally different. Also, as I told you, another important aspect is the geographical position. I want to show you, of course, very quickly the map of Chianti areas, just to remind you where we can find those Chianti areas. So let me share my desktop. Okay, so yeah, I think you are able to see. So the purple area you can see in between Florence and Siena is Chianti Classico. All of the other blue areas are the other Chianti. So let me just tell you the name: Colli Fiorentini, which is the area which belonged to Arezzo; Colli Aretini, which is the area that belongs to Arezzo; Colli Fiorentini, which is the area that belonged to Florence, basically. So it's one of the closest area of the Chianti to the Chianti Classico area. Then we have Colli Senesi, which is the area that I told you, it's very close to Castelnuovo Berardenga, which is one of the subzones of the Chianti Classico area. Then we have Colli Pisani or Colline Pisane, Chianti Montalbano, Monte Spertoli, and Chianti Rufina. These are all of the let me just stop to, okay. These are all of the different Chianti, areas. So you can see that they're located in very different parts of Toscana. For example, when it comes about Chianti Colli Pisani, it's, of course, very in a very different kind of landscape. It's closer to the coast of Tuscany, so the climate will be completely different. Of course, when it comes about Chianti Montalbano, it will be a totally different kind of climate. So what kind of differences, of course, I can find, what kind of, let's say, component I can find in those kind of Chianti? So, well, if you go to read the mandatory, so if you go to read the appellations rules, they say, of course, they give a generic definition of what it should be a Chianti wine. So I want, of course, to tell you what they say about the Chianti wine. Of course, they tend to describe the generic Chianti like a lively ruby red color that, of course, it will mature a little bit, of course, as all of the wine with the aging, and probably it will be more similar to like a granite color. But of course, again, these are not wine that can be aged for a very long time. So again, they are not, you don't want to age just kind of one for that much of time. Of course, they have this kind of very vinoso aroma. Of course, this is an Italian term to describe, of course, that kind of very strong aroma of wine, which is, of course, a good characteristic. Sometimes they have like a scent of violet, especially if you go in Colli Fiorentini or Colli Aretini, they have this kind of violet sense. And they, of course, have very good pronounced character of finesse. Of course, when they are able, of course, to age a little bit more, but it's very rare, as I told you, that you can find one that can be a little bit longer in the aging phase. For example, when it comes about Chianti Colli Aretini, the minimum of the total alcoholic percentages should be around 11.5. When it comes about for example, Chianti Colli Senesi, it's up to 12, so it's more similar to Chianti Classico. I would like also to show you a picture of the Chianti Colli Senesi, just to, of course, I don't know if you remember about the Chianti Castelnuovo Berardenga, the Chianti Classico Castelnuovo Berardenga, sorry. So the landscape is quite similar. So in this specific area, maybe you will find wine that are more similar to the Chianti Classico Castelnuovo Berardenga, but of course the style it will be totally different. And again, as I told you, they are allowed to use at minimum 75% of Sangiovese. So of course, again, the style will be totally different. Let me share my screen. So as you can see, I don't know if you remember, but the landscape is so similar to the Chianti Classico Castelnuovo Berardenga, and this is of course because, of course, they are basically the same area, but of course they're sorry, not the same area, but they are of course very close. But again, the style is totally different. Okay, let me stop to share my screen. Okay, so. And again, this is so important to remember. The style will be so much different compared to us. Of course, these are, of course, some kind of guidelines. Of course, if you want to discover each areas, just try to go there and to let's say, try to understand, to taste all of the different wines, and to understand with your own palate what it will be the characteristic of all of these kind of wines. So for today, of course, it's everything, and we will try also together to understand what kind of argument we want to talk about in the next series. So the next wine Thursday, of course, you can propose me different kind of topic. I will try to discuss with you about your, of course, favorite topic. So see you next time. Thank you so much. Peace.